Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel Robot Framework Tips, Tricks and Tutorials. This is a special day because we have a new Mac that we are going to use for our automation projects and for our automation tutorials. It is necessary that this Mac will have all the prerequisites and all the software installed for our automation projects. So today I'm going to take into consideration that this is a big process that I will be sharing with you. So let's start by installing the most common tools like Python 3, Robot Framework, along with some libraries, and then we will move on to some other stuff like Appium, Xcode, and all the things that you need in order to start your automation projects. So without further ado, let's get started with installing your new macOS for automation. Okay, so we have our brand new Mac. It has nothing installed on it, which is automation wise. So the first thing I'm going to do is to open up a new terminal. I've already modified the font so you can better see what is going on in here. So what I'm going to do first is to verify that my Mac has Python and Python 3 installed. We will be using Python 3 for all our automation projects, but Python 2 is part of the operating system, so I will check that this is also available. So I will type in which Python, and this is the location for Python 2. And if I say which Python 3, I can see that my Mac has also Python 3 installed. So now I can check whether pip is installed. As we know from the previous tutorials, pip is a tool that is used to install Python components, and Robot Framework is one of those components. So I will say pip3 list, and here I have already a list of available packages, and as I can see, there is no Robot Framework installed. So from the previous tutorials, we know the command to install Robot Framework is exactly the same whether you are on Linux or Windows or on Mac. It is simply pip install Robot Framework. And sorry, it's pip3 because there is no pip installed. All right, so now it is available. If I say pip3 list, I can see that Python 4.1.1 has been installed, and there is a message here that says that the scripts like robot are installed under this location, which is not in the path. So right now, if I want to run the robot command, it will simply say command not found. So this is the first step into configuring your Mac, is to create your own profile file in order to use it for the paths you want to add. So I will be copying this. I will say copy, and now I will create my own Python, my own profile file, which I will call, so I'm in a ZSH type of terminal, so I will say nano.zsh_profile. And this will create the new file that I'm going to use for the paths. So I will say export, and then I will say path equals, I will paste the value, and I will say colon and path. And just in case I get disoriented, I'm going to name this section. Actually, I'm going to name this section Python, because there will be other stuff later on. Now that I added this path, all I have to do is say source and give it the name of the file that I just created. So now if I run the command robot again, this should work just fine. So if you're having trouble recognizing the command robot or any other command, check that your path is correctly set. In my case, the way I can check is to do an echo and then say $ and path. And I can see all the paths that are available on my machine for the time being. So here is the folder that I added just now, and here are other paths that are stored inside the /etc/paths file. Okay. Sorry, not echo, but cut. So here are the other paths that are listed here. This is not a macOS tutorial, but it's worth knowing where to search for stuff. So we know that we have Python installed. We know that we have Robot Framework installed, because that's all it takes to make the Robot Framework installation. Now we can install the Robot Framework APM library, which we will also use for automation. So we will go and say pip 3 install Robot Framework -APM library. And this will install APM library along with all its dependencies. So if we say pip3 list, I can see that the APM library has been correctly installed and it is available for the automation tests. Now the problem is that I do not have APM installed, and now we will install APM and the other prerequisites that we are going to use for our automation projects. And we will start by installing, first of all, we will install Java JDK. So I have here the link. I will just open this in Safari. So this is the link for Oracle website, and we will accept all, and we will choose the Mac OS, and we will choose directly the DMG installer. Allow. The download has begun. So Java is required for us to later install Android Studio and other dependencies. So we are going to do that now. We are going to open the JDK file that we just downloaded from the internet, from the Oracle website. Double click, continue, the system password, and we should have the Java correctly installed. I will move the executable to bin because I don't need it anymore. So in order to tell to my system that I do have Java installed, I should enter the same profile file that I created earlier. So I will say nano.zsh profile, and this time I will say Java, and right here I will input the path for Java and the bin directory of Java home. It is very important to set this Java home directory because it will be required by APM, it will be required by Android Studio, so it's a big deal having it. I will save this with Ctrl-O and Ctrl-X. Now I will source this file, ZSX profile, Okay, now I will install Android Studio. The way to install Android Studio on your Mac is simply by going on Google, searching for Android Studio. This will take you to the official webpage, download, and read the license agreement. Now, I have a new Mac with an Apple chip, so I'm going to choose this option. But if you have an older Mac with an Intel chip, you should be using this option. So I will choose Mac with Apple chip, allow for the download. Let me just empty the bin because we no longer use it. And while I'm waiting for Android Studio to download, I can go ahead and install other stuff like getting prepared to install APM. And before installing APM, we need to install Homebrew. With Homebrew, we are going to install Node, and using Node, we are going to install APM. It sounds very complicated, but I can assure you is not. So the way this works is by opening a terminal, and first of all, we are going to install Homebrew. This is the command for Homebrew. Let me just copy it. I will paste it and hit enter. Okay. It seems that we need the password in order to install Homebrew. Let me try again. Okay. This will list all the dependencies that are going to be installed. So I'm going to choose return to continue. I will let the installation finish, and I will get back once everything is all done. This is also installing the command line tools for Xcode, and we are also going to use those for our automation projects on iOS. So this is very important. If I had Xcode downloaded before, I can see that it has finished downloading now. It is simply a matter of going into your App Store, go to develop, and choosing Xcode, download and install. The reason why I didn't do this on camera is because it is a very, very long process. It takes around 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. So I wanted to shorten the time for this video. So once you have Xcode downloaded and installed, it should be displayed under this menu of applications, and when you open it for the first time, it will ask to install dependencies, but we will do this once we get there. So command line tools for Xcode have been downloaded in order to install Homebrew, and now they are going to be installed. Meanwhile, it's the Android Studio executable that has also been downloaded, so I will install maybe that. So I don't have any settings to import. I will not send statistics to Google, and it seems that we are ready. Install standard. I will choose a black theme. I will leave everything as default, and maybe if I want, I can also show the details to know that everything is installing and running correctly. Okay, Android Studio has finished downloading and installing. I will hit finish, and in order to see that everything is going well, I can maybe try and create an Android emulator. We already know how to do that from the previous tutorials. So let me just choose an Android 4 XL with Google 12 because it is already downloaded, and I will say finish, and I will try to start this emulator. Okay, and already simply by installing Android Studio, I have the opportunity to launch an Android emulator that runs perfectly. So we are halfway then. We have the Android Studio installed, we have the emulator installed, so we don't need this for the time being. I will not save the state of this machine because I don't need it. And because Android Studio has been correctly installed, now I have to input the paths for Android Studio in my terminal. Because right now, if I open up a new terminal window and I say ADB devices, for example, it will say command not found. And that is because I also need to update the profile file that I just created with the Android details. So I'll go ahead and say nano dash ZSH profile, and I will create here a new section called Android, and then I will copy the values for the correct paths. So for Android Studio, it will be export path. Actually, it's Android home equals users slash my user. So it's Liviu Avram in my case. And then we have library Android SDK, just in case you want to verify if that is the correct path. So I will type in ls library Android SDK. It's SDK with S. Okay, so it's like this, and then we will also export the platform tools folder, and we will be using this command. So path equals Android home slash platform tools, and we will also export tools and tools bin. Control O, enter, Control X, source ZSH profile. And now if I type ADB devices, I can see that now the command is correctly recognized. It's just that I don't have any open emulators. Okay, so I installed and configured Android Studio. Now, while I was doing that, the homebrew installation also finished. So in the end, I have the next steps category, which is to input this in the profile file. So I will directly copy this, I will paste, and my file is not called .zprofile, but it's called ZSH profile. So now if I type brew, I have to source it first. ZSH profile. And now if I type in brew, the command is recognized. Great. So we have Android Studio, we have Homebrew. Next, we need to install Node in order to be able to install IPM. So we are going to install Node with brew. So we will say brew install Node. This will download Node. And we will also be able to use npm in order to download and install the APM package. All right, So we installed the node. Now we can check for the command npm, which is recognized. And this is the same procedure like on Windows, where we do npm install apm -g, and we will have a functional apm instance after this installation. And we will also install apm doctor just to check that we have all the correct dependencies installed and we can go to work. We will verify that apm is installing, and it is installed. Now I will do npm install apm apm doctor. Okay, and now we will run apm doctor to check that we have everything installed for dependencies. All right. And if we browse through this list, we see that we do not have Xrun, Sim client, and we do not have Carthage. Carthage can be installed also with brew, so it's brew install Carthage. Okay, this is installed. Let's run apm doctor again. And it is only complaining about the sim control. So I will open up Xcode, and it will ask to install additional components. That is what happens when you open up Xcode for the first time. So it's the same command as saying Xcode select and then install. So it's installing the command line tools for Xcode, which are required for apm to run smoothly. I will go to Xcode preferences, and under location, let me check where location is. Command line tools, I will say default to Xcode 13, again with the password. And now the command line tools are installed under this particular location. I can go ahead, I can quit Xcode, run apm doctor again. And this time we can see that all the dependencies have been correctly installed. So we have Node.js, we have Node, Xcode, command line tools for Xcode, DevTools security, Carthage, Android home, Java home, and the bin directory for Java home. And then we have the good folders for Android Studio, which include ADB, emulator, and other commands. We have Java. So there you have it. With this environment installed, we can now go and check if apm is correctly running. I will just type apm, and normally I will get the version number, which at the time of creation of this video is 122.0. And I can start by creating simple test cases with Robot Framework and apm in the following videos. Thank you for watching. I hope that this video helped you debug the situation of installing a new Mac with Robot Framework, with apm and all the dependencies. And I invite you to view my future videos in which I will be starting the iOS automation tutorial. I will see you in the next videos.